Once upon a time there were two great kings, brothers named Shahryar and Shahzaman. Shahryar was the older brother, and his kingdom stretched far and wide. Shahryar wanted to see his brother, so he asked his chief minister to bring him. When Shahzaman arrived, they embraced and spent the whole day together. Shahryar noticed that his brother looked pale and sick. Days passed and Shahzaman grew thinner. Shahryar thought his brother missed his home, but it turned out to be much worse. After 10 days, Shahzaman broke down and told his brother the reason for his sadness. His wife, the queen, had left him, and he was heartbroken. He explained how he had been betrayed, and Shahryar couldn't believe what he was hearing. After listening to his brother, Shahryar became very angry, losing his mind. He decided that no woman could ever be trusted again and planned something terrible. He called his minister and told him to find a wife for him. He intended to marry her for one day and then kill her, continuing this until all the women in his kingdom were gone. The minister had two daughters, the elder named Shahrazad and the younger named Dunyazade. Shahrazad was well educated and had read many books. When she heard of the king's cruel plan, she said to her father, "I want to marry King Shahryar, so I can save our people or die like the other girls." Her father was furious and forbade her from marrying the king. They argued for a long time, but Shahrazad wouldn't change her mind. Finally, the minister gave in and let her marry the king, saying, "I pray that I do not lose you." Shahrazad felt joy in her heart. After preparing her things, she went to her younger sister, Dunyazade, and said, "Listen carefully. When I go to the king, I will send for you. When you come, you must say, 'Sister, if sleep does not overcome you, tell us a story. This way the king will let me speak, and I will save our people. You must trust this plan.'" Dunyazad replied, "Great." That night the minister took Shahrazad to King Shahryar and married her. But when the king went to sleep that night, Shahrazad cried. When the king asked her why she was crying, she said, "I have a sister, and I want to say goodbye." So the king sent for her sister, who came and sat on the floor beside the bed. Dunyazad said, "Sister, if sleep does not overcome you, tell us one of your wonderful stories to pass the night. I fear your absence." Shahrazad turned to King Shahryar and asked, "May I tell a story?" The king replied, "Yes." Shahrazad was very happy and said, "Listen."
I have heard, O happy king with wise judgment, that there was a rich merchant preparing to visit another country. He filled his bags with bread and dates and rode his horse. He traveled for several nights under God's care until he reached his destination. After his visit, he started his journey back home. He traveled for 3 days, and on the 4th day, he found a garden. He entered to find shade from the sun. He sat by a stream under a walnut tree, took out some bread and a handful of dates, and began to eat, throwing the pits to his right and left until he was satisfied. Then he stood up and prayed. As soon as he finished his prayer, he saw a huge genie in front of him, holding a sword and standing on the ground with his head in the clouds. The genie shouted, "Get up so I can kill you with this sword, just like I killed my son." The merchant was terrified and said, "I swear I did not kill your son. How did that happen?" The genie replied, "Did you not sit down, take out some dates from your bag, and eat them while throwing the pits around you?" The merchant responded, "Yes, I did." The genie said, "While you were throwing the pits, my son walked by and one hit him, killing him. Now I must kill you." The merchant cried, "Oh my God, please don't kill me." The genie said, "I swear I will kill you just like you killed my son." The merchant replied, "If I killed him, it was by accident. Please forgive me." The genie said, "I must kill you." He grabbed the merchant and threw him to the ground. The merchant began to weep for his wife and children, while the genie raised his sword. The merchant, drowning in tears, said, "There is no power and no strength except with God, the Most High, the Great."
As dawn approached in this part of the story, Shahrazad stopped, leaving King Shahryar eager to hear more. Dunyazade said to her sister. "What a strange and beautiful story." Shahrazad replied, "It cannot compare to what I will tell you tomorrow night, if the king spares my life. The story will get better and more enjoyable." The king thought, "I will keep her alive until I hear the rest of the story, then I will kill her the next day." King Shahryar worked throughout the next day and returned home to Shahrazad at night. Dunyazade asked her sister, "Please, dear sister, if sleep does not overcome you, tell us one of your wonderful stories." The king added, "Let it be the end of the story of the genie and the merchant." Shahrazad replied, "With pleasure, O happy king."
I have heard, O happy king with wise judgment, that when the genie raised his sword, the merchant pleaded, "Please let me say goodbye to my family, my wife, and my children before you kill me." The genie asked him, "Do you swear that if I let you go, you will return 1 year from today?" The merchant replied, "Yes, I swear by God." After the merchant swore, the genie let him go. The merchant rode his horse and finally reached his home, where he saw his wife and children. When he saw them, he began to cry bitterly. His wife asked, "What is wrong, my husband? Why are you sad when we are all happy and celebrating your return?" He replied, "Why should I not be sad when I have only 1 year left to live?" He then told her everything that had happened with the genie. When his family heard this, they started to cry. It was a sad day as all the children gathered around their father. The merchant spent the rest of the year in this sorrowful state, praying to God and saying goodbye to his family. His children clung to his neck, his daughters wept, and his wife mourned. He said to them, "My children, this is God's will." Then he left, mounted his horse, and traveled until he reached the garden. The merchant sat in the spot where he had eaten the dates, waiting for the genie, tears filling his eyes. While he waited, an old man approached him, leading 2 dogs tied with leashes around their necks. The old man greeted him, and the merchant returned the greeting. The old man asked, "Why are you sitting here, my friend, in this place filled with jinn and demons?" "There is nothing in this haunted garden but sorrow and grief." The merchant told him everything that happened with the genie. The old man was amazed by the story and said, "Your promise to return here is an act of bravery. By God, I will not leave you until I see what happens with the genie." He then sat down beside the merchant, and they talked.
At this point, Shahrazad realized it was morning and she stopped speaking. As dawn broke, Dunyazade said to her sister, "What a strange and beautiful story." Shahrazad replied, "Tomorrow night I will tell you something even better and more enjoyable."